The Indianapolis Colts saw their offensive line return to a formidable unit in 2023 under the leadership of Tony Sparano Jr. But can Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, and the rest of the O-line become dominant in 2024? And where does the Colts offensive line rank in the AFC South? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and I'm joined here as always by my fellow analyst and writer at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake, it was nice to see the Colts offensive line look back to their normal selves, I would say, in 2023. Easily a top 10 unit in the NFL. Pro Football Focus actually thinks the Colts offensive line was borderline top 5 in 2023. But honestly, Drake, I think that this Colts offensive line could still take another step. We know what Quentin Nelson and Ryan Kelly bring, but there's a lot of other young offensive linemen that I think are still getting better for this team.
Yeah, and they're building, with the veterans, guys like Ryan Kelly, guys like Quentin Nelson and Braden Smith. We talked about Bernard Ryman. We'll get a little bit more into it, but he took a massive jump last season. So who's to stop this guy from taking yet another jump here, just elevating his play? And also Will Fries did too, and so did some of these depth guys who filled in. So you also drafted a couple of solid picks. Looking back on that draft, man, the two picks that we'll talk about, Colts really did a good job back-to-back rounds. So I think that they're really putting a massive level of importance on the offensive line, and they damn well should, because you are nothing in today's NFL if your quarterback can't be protected. And also, hey, you know what? They survived a bad 2022, and all signs look really good for the Colts to continue, that progression as a unit.
It continues to be all about Anthony Richardson. And part of that, I know we kind of focus on getting the weapons around Anthony Richardson, but part of that is protection, and making sure that the offensive line is intact and chugging along as a unit. Chris Ballard made a very interesting comment this offseason referencing Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck always said, Chris, just keep me protected. Keep me protected. As long as I'm protected, we're going to make some plays. I can get it to the receivers, but I need that protection. So the Colts are trying to do that with Anthony Richardson as well. Big year 2 for Richardson. So you want to put the best offensive line out there. And it's not only for Richardson, but Jonathan Taylor and this running game as well. So the importance of this unit is as high as I think it's ever been. And just because they had a bounce back 2023 doesn't mean they can lift their foot off the gas. They need to continue to improve and continue to ascend at every single spot and make sure that 2023 is just the beginning. It's not the peak of this unit. So tonight we're going to talk about the Colts offensive line, really focus in on the starters on the offensive line. Like Bernard Ryman, is he going to continue to play at a high level? Can Braden Smith stay healthy and bounce back from an up and down 2023? Then we'll look at the interior. Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Will Fries. What does their 2024 look like? And in the instance of Kelly and Fries, what does it look like beyond? So really fun episode tonight. Let's look at the chat. Truitt is here as always. Truitt answering the question of if the Colts offensive line will be dominant this season. He says, yes, I believe they will. So Truitt is already on the train and expecting good things. We've got Sean Contright as always in the chat. Good to see you, buddy. And as others trickle in, make sure you're following us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night, or when we take a break, intent, or when there's special breaking news episodes, so you never miss us. But hey, if you can't catch us live, no worries. Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube afterwards, wherever you listen to us, make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can continue to reach other Colts fans just like you. So Drake, let's talk about our final position preview on the offensive side of the ball for the Indianapolis Colts, the offensive line. And tonight I want to start with Bernard Ryman, because I think his position is the most critical of any on this offensive line. we saw the improvement out of Raymond last season, going from a guy that we thought maybe he could be a left tackle or a starter eventually, to really solidifying himself as the starting left tackle. I mean, when you look at his Pro Football Focus numbers, Drake, which I think Pro Football Focus does a pretty good job when it comes to the offensive line grades.
Mhm.
But Bernhard Raimann last season with an overall grade of 82.7. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Drake, that was top 10 in the NFL last season. I think he was tied for 8th in the NFL in terms of offensive tackles for an overall grade. And then when you look at when you're looking at his pass blocking, did an exceptional job there as a pass blocker, 81.3 grade. And when you compare it to the rest of the tackles in the NFL, you're looking at him being, I think it was 10th in the NFL in terms of pass blocking. Really, really shined there. And he wasn't a slouch in the run game either, 74.6. So Bernhard Raimann really showed out in year 2. And Drake, I honestly think it's just the tip of the iceberg, but I want to pass it to you first. What do you think the outlook is for Bernhard Raimann in 2024? And do you think he's going to have just as good of a 2024 as 2023, or even better?
I think that everything is there for him to have a better, season, or at the least continue to grow, because you have to think about where he started here. Okay. Like, he was not very experienced at Central Michigan, as a tackle. All right. He started out as a tight end. So then you're moving on from this to, the pros. And he still walked into the Colts organization as a rookie, pretty inexperienced, and it showed right away. Like, he was very kind of skittish, kind of, trying to adjust to all of this speed that he was not used to, and athleticism. And at the end of 2022, you started to see that climb, and it just really all connected for the guy in 2023. I think that you really saw the footwork. You saw that athleticism that the Colts drafted him for, that nimbleness. He might be like really tall, but he added muscle, which really helped him put on even more of a wrecking to some of these pass rushers. And like you said, you look at overall pass blocking efficiency, he was number 8 in the NFL. The only guys in front of him were Penei Sewell, Trent Williams, Matt Pryor, Jordan Mailata, Tyron Smith. Well, Matt Pryor was 42 snaps, so you kind of have to,
not a big sample size.
Yeah, you can't really put anything in front of. You can't.
We all know what Matt Pryor is, and Matt Pryor's not good.
Yeah, but I mean, Tristan Wirfs, and then his own teammate Braden Smith. He's up there with the best company in the entire league, top 20 run blocker, 11th in pass blocking. I mean, this is a guy who still is growing as a tackle, people. He still doesn't have that much experience, and he's just that good already. Oh yeah, I think there's more to come. I think that they haven't seen this kind of consistency since Anthony Costanzo, who I know he wasn't otherworldly, but he also had a high floor. Okay, the guy was consistent and solid and really protected Andrew Luck. So I think that you got to be excited here. And I think he just fits what Tony Sperano wants to do with these guys. And that's just make them more efficient and nasty. I mean, you saw him on tape, pretty elegant guy to talk to. I mean, real soft-spoken guy. I remember asking him about, how to, being a tight end help you now. And he talked about footwork. It really helped him be a route runner, and then you adjust to blocking assignments. So the Colts have got to be freaking pumped about this. This guy put up Pro Bowl numbers. Okay, he should have been considered for something like that. I just think that, he was on a 9-8 team. But look for Bernhard Raimann, in my humble opinion. At the least, he's at least going to keep climbing, if even just a little bit. But I think it's going to be a little more than that.
On 620 pass blocking snaps. I don't think Stats Matt is with us tonight, so I'm going to take over the role of Stats Matt. But Drake, in 620 pass blocking snaps, Bernhard Raimann only allowed 34 pressures. That's a 96.8 efficiency rating. Only allowed 4 sacks the entire season, and 2 of those were against Cincinnati. So you take out that Cincinnati game, only 2 sacks allowed the rest of the season, and it was in week 6 against Jacksonville and week 7 against Cleveland. Other than that, Bernhard Raimann was just a wall there. And I love how you pointed out how he added muscle, because one of the biggest concerns, one of the biggest question marks about Bernhard Raimann was his play strength in
Yes.
2022 as a rookie. He came in and he would just, it seemed like for most of the year, he was bull rushed in right back into the quarterback, and that was bad. He comes in, he works all off season with Quentin Nelson to add muscle, to add to that play strength. He comes in 15 to 20 pounds heavier, really, and it's 15 pounds of muscle. He's because Bernhard Raimann's a pretty lean guy, standing at 6'7". I think he's 303 pounds, or 6'6", 303 pounds, somewhere around there. So he's not a huge, just like a 330, 340 pound tackle or anything. But then he comes in and the difference between 2022 and 2023 in terms of Raimann's play strength, night and day. So you see him come in. And as NFL Nerd says, he's a 3rd round pick as well. A great pick by Chris Ballard. But you're right, Drake. He doesn't have a lot of snaps at left tackle yet, because until his last couple of years at Central Michigan, Bernhard Raimann played tight end. So he's still relatively raw for an offensive lineman, for a left tackle. I know he's 26 years old. He'll be 27 when the 2024 season, or shortly after the 2024 season gets underway. But still, in terms of his experience at the offensive line and his ability to grow, he still has a long way to go. And that's music to Colts fans' ears, because he's already so good. I've got the numbers in front of me, the official numbers, instead of trying to just remember them off the top of my head. But Bernhard Raimann was the 7th overall tackle, according to Pro Football Focus, 9th in pass blocking grade, 15th in run blocking grade. So a fantastic 2023. And again, I really have confidence in Bernhard Raimann that he's just going to continue to get better. And the Anthony Costanzo comparison that you put there, if Bernhard Raimann can turn into Anthony Costanzo, just a guy he doesn't necessarily even have to make it to a Pro Bowl, just a guy that you can put out there on an island and he's going to hold up against the best pass rushers in the NFL, you're fine with that. That's a franchise left tackle. So Bernhard Raimann, I have huge hopes for him in 2024. And Drake, I really don't see him, unless there's a injury that he's working through all season long that really hinders him. I don't see Bernhard Raimann taking a step back. If anything, I see him playing at the same level at worst, but my odds are Bernhard Raimann's going to play even better and just continue to solidify himself as the Colts franchise left tackle for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and keep in mind, guys, that he's going to have, you're hoping, anyway, knock on wood, that he's going to have a more mobile quarterback healthy. You're going to have Jonathan Taylor back there. Not saying Zach Moss wasn't a great running back at times, but you're going to have the stars back there, and I think it's just going to help, because when you got a guy that can leave the pocket like that, and the defense has to kind of keep a guy on him, which alleviates the pass rush. Hello, like that's going to make his job even easier. And like you also said, that Bengals game was a nightmare for the whole line. So the 2 sacks he let up, don't put too much pressure on him for that game. The whole team really kind of buckled in that one. So
yeah, I agree. Now let's look at the right side of the offensive line, Drake, at the tackle position, and Braden Smith. I think we all know that when Braden Smith is healthy, he's one of the best right tackles in the NFL. I don't think there's any debate about that. But he had some big injury concerns last year. He dealt with a knee injury all season long, and it really hurt him. He played the first 5 games, but then he missed 5 weeks of the season, missed week 11, 14 through 16. So that knee injury really hampered him. And even against the Tennessee Titans in week 13, he was only able to play 3 snaps. So Braden Smith did have surgery on that knee. He didn't participate in the offseason program and mandatory minicamp because he is still working his way back from that. But all signs are that surgery went very well. They were able to fix the issue in his knee. Braden Smith said he already feels relief in that knee, and he expects to come back at 100% when training camp opens here in a few weeks. So the biggest question is, can Braden Smith, I think, stay healthy? I think that's number one. Yeah. But if he's healthy, can he continue to produce at a high level? Because when you look at his numbers last year, I'll go back to Pro Football Focus for the grades here. I mean, overall, Braden Smith, we talked about how Bernhard Raimann played. Braden Smith was actually the 6th best offensive tackle in the NFL a season ago, according to Pro Football Focus, the 3rd best run blocking tackle with a 90.1 elite grade. Pass blocking was a little bit different, 30th, but I think a lot of that can be contributed to that knee injury and how he was having to be used and kind of compensate for that knee injury. So I think that definitely hurt him as a pass protector, but he was still an absolute road grader in the run game. So Drake, what do you think? There's been a lot of talk from fans and not as much internally. Really internally, it's not a question, but I know a lot of fans say, should the Colts move on from Braden Smith? That's an emphatic no from me, but what do you think? What do you think the Colts should do with Braden Smith, or what do you expect out of him this season?
Well, I mean, what they should do with him is absolutely nothing. You should keep him, because go back to the ground game. First off, the 71, pass blocking grade, like you said, when you have a bum knee, my God, try to block Myles Garrett. I mean, with a bum, try to block him healthy. Like, now you got a bum knee. So, that definitely had to play into his pass blocking, because you're dropping back and then you're stopping, and, you have to kind of take a blow from the pass rush. But let's talk about that run blocking grade. He took 246 running snaps. Okay, that's still a pretty hefty amount given that he played only 10 games. 3rd in the NFL, okay, behind Penei Sewell and Trent Williams, and in front of guys like Havenstein. And I mean, you're talking about Trent Brown. I mean, you're talking about he is among elite company, and he plays like a right tackle should in the ground game, and that is bruising and efficient. Okay, and he carves lanes, so that's why you want him healthy. These guys don't grow on trees. Okay, there's no guarantee Matt Gonsalves, even if they traded up to get him, if they traded to get him, there's no guarantee that he's going to pan out as good as Braden Smith. Okay, so Colts fans need to try to get past his injury bug here and there that he's recently had, and realize that, kind of like Anthony Costanzo, he doesn't have a Pro Bowl yet. Okay, but this dude on the opposite side has played nothing but absolute lights out football. I mean, he's been fantastic, and the numbers show it, Andrew. So I think if he can just get healthy, and if he says that he's feeling relief, that's fantastic, because if he can play like that hurt, can you imagine what he could do healthy, especially with Tony Sperano kind of directing everything? I think that he's going to take a step up if he's healthy. And I might even say he'll just stay as consistent as he's been before the injury, which has been great. So
yeah, I think as long as he's healthy, you're going to see a very consistent Braden Smith, and the guy that's over on that right side, that, again, just like how we kind of talked about with Anthony Costanzo, where we think Bernard Ryman is headed. He may not be a Pro Bowler or an All-Pro, but you stick him over on that right side, you really don't have to worry about who he's going up against. He's going to do his job, and do his job well. You want to give a shout out to Yim for joining us today. Sorry I've been absent, had a lot going on in the dad world. Hey, we understand that. We appreciate all of your support. But Drake, yeah, I mean, and you talked about he was 30th in pass blocking grade, but he only allowed 14 pressures last season. 14 pressures, 0 sacks. Braden Smith still held up when he was out there. He just wasn't out there for all 17 games. So you're hoping with the knee injury cleaned up, as long as he can stay healthy, I don't have any concerns with Braden Smith. NFL Nerd with an interesting question here. Speaking of injury on the right side, will Blake Freeland be the backup? Matt Gonsalves, someone else? Drake, in my opinion, it's Blake Freeland. So far throughout the offseason, during the offseason program, throughout mandatory minicamp, it was Blake Freeland running out there with the ones at right tackle, since Smith couldn't be out there. And I do think that while the Colts have Gonsalves listed as a tackle, and they've been playing him at both tackle and guard, I think for Gonsalves, he's going to be probably more of a guard in the NFL. I think that's where he's going to have the most success. Now, that could all change. I mean, we all thought Braden Smith was going to be a guard in the NFL, and now Braden Smith has been a right tackle for his entire career. So Gonsalves he has experience, especially at Pitt. He played right tackle and left tackle. So I'm sure Gonsalves will push Freeland, but as of right now, I think it's going to be Freeland. What do you think?
These guys are so similar in what I think the Colts want them to do. I mean, you've got experience on both ends from both guys when they were both in college. So it's like, it's good, I think, for Gonsalves' cause. But like Andrew said, I think that you kind of want him more as a guard, because then you want Bortolini more as maybe Kelly's successor. So then I think that it's going to be Freeland still is going to occupy that swing tackle. And I know that he had a rough year last year, but man, the guy played 701 snaps for a guy that wasn't really supposed to start. That's pretty good experience. So that's a guy that might actually make a pretty big jump as a depth tackle. Who knows?
Yeah, I would agree. You would definitely want to see Blake Freeland making those strides.
A little more.
Otherwise, you'll be looking elsewhere, like a Matt Gonzalez, to take over that swing tackle position. But let's move to the interior of the offensive line here, Drake. And we got to start out with the All-Pro Quentin Nelson. Another year, another All-Pro for number 56. I mean, at this point, you just kind of expect Quentin Nelson. I'm sorry, not an All-Pro, but a Pro Bowl, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, you just expect that he's going to make an All-Pro. 6 years, 6 Pro Bowls, 3-time first-team All-Pro. In 2021, he was a second-team All-Pro, so just a 4-time All-Pro altogether. And honestly, I thought Quentin Nelson played probably some of his best football since 2021. In my opinion, watching the film, Quentin Nelson looked like he was back, and I was kind of surprised that he didn't get an All-Pro nod there. But what Quentin Nelson was out there doing, dominating in the run game, he didn't have to account for a struggling left tackle or a struggling center. He could just focus on his job, and you had the Quentin Nelson of old, in my opinion. Now, Pro Football Focus, again, we'll go through these grades, didn't see Quentin Nelson last year as elite. He was the 16th best graded guard in the NFL. Pass blocking, elite, was the 3rd best guard in the NFL. Run blocking, they had him at 25th, but honestly, I think that's really low. I think he should have been much better than that. He looked like a top 5 guard in the NFL to me a season ago, Drake. And if he continues on this, I think more people are going to realize that the dominant All-Pro Quentin Nelson is back and rocking.
Yeah, and it also could have, maybe made a difference that Ryan Kelly was in and out of action at times. Because look, when you have, a backup to your right or to your left side, it is going to affect the way the defensive scheme is presented to your offensive line. Okay, they're probably going to attack and attack and attack and attack. So, I think that it's also, at least comforting to see him kind of getting back into the swing of things with the rest of these guys. After just a couple of years ago, you were really questioning, is Quentin Nelson, is he past his prime? Is he starting to fall off? Well, 6 Pro Bowls in 6 freaking years of football, and I think he has 3 All-Pro nods already. First team, by the way, you're talking about a guy that hasn't shown really any signs, people, of stopping at all. So, like Andrew said, you kind of look at the pass blocking, no question, absolutely fantastic. But the run blocking numbers, that could have been a bunch of different factors. The offense was in its first season under Shane Steichen. It was really predicated for Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. And as great of a whiz as Steichen is, Minshew's not on the team anymore. So it's like you're talking about maybe the quarterback play wasn't mobile enough. Maybe there wasn't enough downfield shots. There's a lot of different things that I think could have factored into Nelson not having a better run grade. So at the end of the day, though, the guy's a Pro Bowler. He's the best, I think, player on the offensive line for the Colts. I don't think it's really close yet. Maybe Ryan Kelly, but I think you're just going to keep getting Quentin Nelson. And until I see any regression or no Pro Bowls or no pancakes or him just running over people, I think that he's just going to keep dominating. So
I think one of the big reasons we saw Quentin Nelson back to his normal self was simply health. His back, for the first time in a few years, his back was not hurting him. Quentin Nelson really for the past 2 to 3 years has been dealing with back issues and back spasms. And while you're never going to hear excuses out of Big Q, you're never going to see him miss a game because of it. Those hurt. When you're trying to leverage yourself and anchor yourself against 300-pound men that are making you twist and turn to stay in front of them, I mean, it's going to take its toll. but Quentin Nelson's back really didn't hurt him last season. And you saw it. You saw his ability to stay in the passing game. Last year was the first time in a couple of seasons where I saw Quentin Nelson was able to kind of leave his block, and you just see him go and attack somebody. The Colts were able to pull him again and make him the lead blocker in front of Jonathan Taylor at times. A couple of years ago, during when Quentin was an all-pro, every time that the Colts would pull Nelson out in front of whoever he was running for, you're thinking, good luck to that defender that Nelson is burrowing down on and getting ready to attack, because usually that play is going to end up being a 15 to 20 yard run. And I saw that out of Quentin Nelson for the first time in a long time. The tape definitely speaks volumes of Nelson, how he played last year. I think the tape is a better indicator of that and shows that he played better than the grades that Pro Football Focus gave him a season ago. And like I said, in my opinion, Quentin Nelson looked like he was a top 5 guard in the NFL again. No, not 16th as Pro Football Focus says. I think Quentin Nelson was easily one of the best guards in the NFL. He's healthy again this year. It's another year playing next to Bernard Ryman. Like I said, if Ryan Kelly continues his another strong season like he had in 2023, and Quentin isn't focused on having to help the center or the left tackle out, you're going to see an all-pro season out of Quentin Nelson. Maybe, I don't know if that's considered a big time prediction or a hot take, but Quentin Nelson, I think, is going to be an all-pro in 2024. Wouldn't surprise me, and I don't think it would surprise a lot of people within that Colts organization either. But let's talk about the guy next to him, Drake, and that is Ryan Kelly. Because I think Ryan Kelly had a really good season in 2023, and it was great to see, because even before, at the end of 2022, we were thinking, what's Ryan Kelly's future look like with the Indianapolis Colts? And it wasn't, it wasn't great. It wasn't, but he comes back. He has a great season. He looked like the Ryan Kelly of old. Makes the Pro Bowl. I think it's his 4th Pro Bowl appearance in his career. Turns out he was the 8th best center in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. The best pass blocking center with a 78.3 grade, 10th overall in run blocking. And then when you dive deeper into the stats, Drake, you're looking at a guy that really has played his best ball since the 2020 season, even, because you dive in here and he only allowed 7 pressures total in 2023, 1 sack. That's all Ryan Kelly allowed. He was definitely at his best pass blocking. Now it's just, can he do it again? Because you look at the age. Ryan Kelly is 31 years old. His birthday is coming up this week, even. I think it's or early next week, I should say. But Drake, Ryan Kelly is interesting with his future. And I think because he is entering the final year of his deal, the Colts did draft Tanner Bortolini, who played center at Wisconsin. So, but Ryan Kelly's had such a big position with this Colts team for so long, as far as leadership is concerned. He's been a Pro Bowl player. So you can kind of see arguments for both sides of, do the Colts let Kelly walk? Do they keep him? I think a lot of it's going to be predicated on what happens this season. But what's your gut feeling? Do you think that Ryan Kelly stays with the Colts long term, or do you think this could be the last season we see Kelly in a Colts uniform?
I think that it's all gonna. It's such a tough. That's so tough to try to decide upon. I think it, like you said, it's going to depend upon 2 things really, mixed together. Is Ryan Kelly going to continue to play either at, like we've said with all these guys, either at the same level as last year or better? Or is he going to regress? And if so, how is Tanner Bortolini doing in camp? How quickly is he adjusting to Tony Sparano and the scheme and, the life in the NFL, and just, trying to learn how to block in a totally different atmosphere with way more athletic people. So I think that Ryan Kelly, though, I think he's so valuable to this organization. I mean, just like a season ago, we were talking about him being a potential trade candidate or cut candidate or just something like that, along with Mo Alley Cox. Newsflash, people, they're all still here. Like those guys have not gone anywhere. And he's, he had a really bad 2022. He's probably the worst out of the starting lineup, actually. I think that you just saw Kelly fall apart, which is why those, rumors started to swirl. But this dude is no nonsense. And I think that there were some outside of football things that we don't really need to talk about at this point anymore, with his children that kind of probably got into the game and performance a little bit. Well, that's all behind him. And you saw that last season. Totally returned to form. Multiple times was the best graded center weekly. I think a couple different times in Pro Football Focus. I mean, you really saw not just a resurgent year, but it had to just give the Colts a big sigh of relief because they probably want to keep this guy around. And I could see him playing at least serviceable, maybe even into his mid 30s. I mean, if he can just stay away from the injuries and stuff, he doesn't sound in any interview like he wants to retire. He doesn't sound like he wants to leave the Colts. He sounds like he wants to play freaking football, and the Colts are going to let him, I think, as long as he can. So
when the rumors, or when he addressed the rumors, or someone asked him about the rumors of him retiring, he shot those down pretty emphatically.
Check your sources.
Yeah, and I don't even imagine a world where I see Ryan Kelly getting benched with the Colts. I even poor play this season. I think it would take a lot for the Colts to bench Ryan Kelly in favor of someone like Tanner Bortolini. I just, because of how long he's been with the team, the leadership role he has, it would take a complete and catastrophic meltdown from Kelly to see that happening. So in my opinion, I think as long as Kelly goes out there, proves that he can still play and play at a high level, play at the level that he played last season, because I don't think that what we saw last season out of Ryan Kelly was catching lightning in a bottle. I don't think it was something that we're not going to see ever again either. I think that's what you can expect out of Ryan Kelly. And we've seen that over the course of his career. So if Kelly can just go out there and prove, I can still play at a very high level, at a Pro Bowl level, there's no question that the Colts will try to bring him back because of how he can play, because of his leadership ability. And then again, that continuity on the offensive line. So for people that want to move on from Kelly, I wouldn't be so certain that happens. Now, as NFL Nerd just says, I don't think Kelly will get another long contract, and I don't think really any Colts will get long contracts, unless it's like Anthony Richardson. I think the Colts are going to continue to operate in those 2 to 3 year deals. I could see the Colts extending Kelly for another 2 years, just like how they did with DeForest Buckner. I think 2 years for $14-15 million. Again, I think that's kind of the sweet spot you're looking at for Ryan Kelly, or not. I would say 15 million per year, so 2 years, 30 million total. That's, I think, a sweet spot. If Kelly is playing
a year, okay.
I mean, that'd be a hell of a deal. But 15 million a year for Ryan Kelly, I think that could be the market, especially if he's playing at a Pro Bowl level. Now, the other starter on the offensive line, I'm more inclined to say that this is his last year with the Indianapolis Colts, simply because you can't pay everybody, and that's Will Fries. Will Fries entering the final year of his rookie deal, and it has really been impressive. Coming in as a 7th round pick out of Penn State, he's just grinded and he's worked his butt off to go from a 7th round pick who in that first season, was a healthy scratch, to now being an established starter on the Colts offensive line there at the right guard position. Certainly impressed us last season with his ability and his, bounce back, because we thought Will Fries, you especially, thought that the Colts were in trouble at right guard because Will Fries wasn't going to be able to handle it. But he showed out. He was a serviceable right guard, 24th in pass blocking for guards, 37th in run blocking, was the 32nd overall guard. But I think this could be his last season with the Indianapolis Colts, just because, again, can't pay everybody. Quentin Nelson and Braden Smith are already making big money. Ryan Kelly are likely to pay over Will Fries. Bernard Ryman, if he continues to play like this, he's going to get a fat contract to be that left tackle. Yep. So Will Fries just ends up as the odd man out. So Drake, I guess I want to ask this, do you envision any scenario where this is not Will Fries' last season with the Indianapolis Colts?
Unless he just absolutely balls out to the point where they would be stupid to not pay him, and then they would be convinced that both Tanner Bortolini, by the way, who can play guard, and Matt Gonsalves, by the way, who can play guard, and they picked them in the 3rd and 4th rounds. If they can just say, you know what, did not see this coming. We got a guy who is a freaking diamond here. That's when they would pay him. They'd figure it out. They would do it. They'd figure out a way to make that happen. But man, it really goes back to, you're already paying Nelson, you're already paying Kelly, you're already paying Smith, and you're going to keep paying those guys with contract lengths that make sense until they show you they're not worth it. Okay. And then you have to make a real tough Shaq Leonard type decision. Okay. Until then, that has not happened. Okay. So you're going to keep paying those guys, and you're going to pay Bernhard Raimann if he continues, like you said. That leaves Fries as the man out. Okay. And also, you did invest draft capital in 2 guys that have a whole hell of a lot more potential, no offense, than Will Fries. Okay. So you're looking just at this like, we love you, dude, and you keep growing. He keeps climbing. Could he be a Mark Glowinski situation where he goes off to be more independent on another offensive line like he did with the Giants and fail? Maybe. Maybe he just erupts. Who knows? But he's not like at this ridiculous trajectory where you're like, we got to pay this guy. You know, for a 7th round pick, hell yeah. Awesome. He played all last year, made me look stupid. He actually bounced back, looked like a bruiser in the ground game, and improved his pass blocking techniques and got lighter on his feet. So he just keeps grinding and proving, and the former Nittany Lion just keeps shattering that 7th round status. But I just don't think they're gonna retain him.
Look, Will Fries has been a serviceable guard for the Indianapolis Colts.
He's been a dog. Oh, yeah.
He's, he definitely exceeded expectations from his 7th round pick status, and he started a lot of games in the NFL. But at some point, you just can't pay everybody. And I think the writing is on the wall, because you mentioned it, Drake. They drafted Matt Gonsalves in the 3rd round. They drafted Tanner Bortolini in the 4th round. Both of those guys can play guard. Their primary position for Bortolini is probably center. For Gonsalves might be guard, but he can also play tackle. But both those guys can play guard. And you just can't pay everybody. The Colts might be giving Bernhard Raimann an extension as early as next summer, heading into the final year of his rookie deal. I just don't see where Will Fries is back, unless Kelly tanks and Will Fries goes out there and becomes a Pro Bowler. Maybe that's the only way I see it. But I don't think that's likely. I think the more likely scenario is you see Kelly earn another 2-year deal because he's continuing to play at that Pro Bowl level, and the Colts are like to Will Fries, thank you for what you've done. And now if Will Fries wants to sign on a really cheap deal, then sure, the Colts would probably have him back, but I think he can go make more money elsewhere. And as a 7th round pick, you already didn't make much on your rookie deal. Go out and get your bag. Go out and get your bag somewhere else where you can still be a starter somewhere else in the league. So, Drake, before we compare this Colts starting offensive line to the rest of the starting offensive lines in the AFC South, I do want to talk about the depth on the offensive line for the Colts, and not necessarily focusing in on one specific player, but you look at it. Blake Freeland comes back after an up and down rookie season, but he should be better in year 2. You're hoping that he adds some of that play strength that Bernhard Raimann did a season ago. Talked about Matt Gonsalves, 3rd round pick out of Pitt, can play tackle, can play guard. He's got a lot of position versatility. Tanner Bortolini, coming out of that Wisconsin offensive line factory, incredible athlete, can play center and guard. Then you got some of the other guys that Wesley French played well in games for Ryan Kelly last season. Danny Pinter, we've seen him be able to fill in at times. Jake Witt, the 7th round rookie that was placed on IR, we didn't get to see him last season. So there's a lot of different depth pieces. Not all of these guys are going to make the final 53-man roster. If I had to say it, I'd probably guess that the Colts roll with 8 offensive linemen, maybe 9, heading into the season. But which offensive lineman, which depth piece along the offensive line do you think is the most intriguing option for the Indianapolis Colts, or a guy that you are really going to be watching if he's able to play and get some time, get some run throughout the 2024 season?
I hope it doesn't happen, but I'm intrigued to see year 2 of Blake Freeland. That dude played against Trey Hendrickson, Myles Garrett, Harold Landry, just countless others. Aaron Donald, they literally took him from the interior, put him on the outside so he could face Blake Freeland. I mean, dude, Freeland saw a hellfire and brimstone level of defensive pass rushers, the best the NFL could throw at him. Oh, wait, TJ Watt also. So I want to see this guy, if he gets that opportunity. Let's see if he's taken a step, because I bet he has, because he kind of tanked last season, but near the end of it, and as you saw his tenure, whenever he did finish, you saw a little bit of an upside. You saw a little bit of a swing up, and you saw him learning. I just think that the whole NFL hit him. It's like, your first fight ever. Here's Mike Tyson. Like the dude just had to face the worst of the worst. And sometimes he looked awful, but honestly, sometimes he looked like he was learning. So that would be intriguing, but you hope he does not have to start at all. So,
yeah. Yeah, I like that answer. I really do. To me, I think the one to watch is Matt Gonzalez for a couple of reasons. The Colts did draft him in the 3rd round. There's some decent draft capital. They traded up for Matt Gonzalez. They thought he'd be a tremendous fit in the offensive line room. He can play tackle, so he'll push Blake Freeland for that swing tackle position, but he can also play guard. And I think he's really going to push Will Fries for that right guard spot. And you remember in 2021, when Mark Glowinski was in the final year of his deal, the Colts really were at one point in the season were kind of rotating him and Chris Reed. Would the Colts rotate Will Fries and Matt Gonzalez to just kind of see what they get? If Gonzalez is really starting to push Fries and Fries starts to struggle, wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. So you look at that, and I think people forget Matt Gonzalez before the 2023 season. A lot of NFL scouts had top 50 grades on Gonzalez. The only reason he fell is because he had that toe injury. 3 games into his senior year, had to have surgery, missed the rest of the year, couldn't really go through the pre-draft process and work out, so he slid a little bit. And the Colts said, this is where the slide's going to stop. Jumped up to 79 and got him. But another, if he would have had a solid senior season at Pitt and would have earned like all ACC honors, you're probably looking at a guy that's going to be taken in the mid-2nd round at least. So for the Colts to grab him towards the middle to end of the 3rd round, that could be a potential steal. So don't count out Matt Gonzalez. I know there's a lot of people that are thinking about, like you said, Blake Freeland, just because year 2, we obviously want to see that, and I 100% agree. A lot of people think Tanner Bortolini has a better fast track to start on the Indianapolis Colts offensive line. To me, it's Matt Gonzalez. Yeah. I think we could see Matt Gonzalez starting on the Colts offensive line as early as some point this season, and it might not just because he's filling in for injury, it's because he just beat the guy that he was going up against. Good question from NFL Nerd. What's the Colts' toughest defensive line matchup this season? Drake, in my opinion, and as our good friend, the CFO, Patrick, good to see you stopping in, buddy. He says Jets, Lions, and believe it or not, the Titans. Those are interesting. Those are interesting because I wouldn't have said any of those 3. In my opinion, their toughest defensive line matchup, I think it does come in the AFC South, but I think it's either the Jacksonville Jaguars, because we saw what Josh Allen was able to do against the Colts last year. They added Eric Armstead. I think Travon Walker is starting to come into his own, or the Houston Texans. You got Will Anderson on one side, Danielle Hunter on the other. Danico Autry joined that defensive line there in Houston as well. That's a tough defensive line, and the Colts are going to see that defensive line in week 1. So you're gonna the Colts offensive line is gonna have to be ready for it. But Drake, what do you think? Who do you think is the toughest defensive line matchup that the Colts O line is facing this season?
I mean, you really can't overlook the Jets just because Quinnen Williams brings so much just tenacity from the interior, and they always have just a top flight defense, but it really starts with that pass rush. So I love that one, love the Lions one, but I agree with Andrew, man. I think that what the Houston Texans were able to do. Also, Foley Fudukasi, they got him from the Jaguars,
Mm-hmm.
who is kind of like your way. He's like Raekwon Davis is to the Colts. Only I think he'll probably play more snaps. You know, he's not sitting behind Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner. Which, by the way, make no mistake, people, that defensive front is also a problem for those other AFC South teams. But I think that Daniil Hunter, I think Danico Autry, who, by the way, I think had a ridiculous season again last year, just can't get freaking rid of that guy. He won't leave he lives to bring tears to Colts fans.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're talking about Will Anderson, man, and he played fantastic football. Say what you want about the Texans, man, that they really said to the entire NFL, we are going to do everything possible to make this a Super Bowl team as quickly as we can around CJ Stroud. And they're young. So I think that that's going to be a battle. I think you're going to see the Colts truly tested when they face Houston.
It's not going to be an easy season for
Oh,
the
no.
Colts offensive line, but I think they're going to be up for the challenge. So with that in mind, Drake, let's take a look at the AFC South and who the Colts are going to be, who are the fellow offensive lines that the Colts will be facing in the division this season. So what we've got here is the projected starters for each one of these teams for the Colts, Texans, Jags, and Titans. Some of these may change, obviously, with injuries and how position battles shake up throughout training camp and the preseason. But as of right now, here are the projected starters. Obviously, we've run through the Colts. Bernard Ryman at left tackle, Quentin Nelson at left guard, Ryan Kelly in the middle at center, Will Fries at right guard, and Braden Smith at right tackle. Then you go to the Texans. You have Laramie Tunsil, the Pro Bowl off left tackle, and a guy that has made some all pros before, and when he's healthy and out there and on his game, it's hard to find a better left tackle in the NFL than Laramie Tunsil. Kenyon Green there at left guard with Juice Scruggs at center.
What an awesome name, by the way.
Absolutely. The Texans did add Shaq Mason, a fantastic right guard, and then Titus Howard, who did struggle a little bit last season with the Texans. The Jaguars, they were able to keep Cam Robinson, added Ezra Cleveland, and Mitch Morse. Mitch Morse came over from Buffalo. Brandon Scherf, who was a fantastic right guard with the Commanders for so long, and then Anton Harrison, who is heading into his second season there in Jacksonville. The Titans definitely needed some help on the offensive line. We'll see if the changes were enough for them. They drafted JC Latham there in the top 10 to move into the left tackle spot. He was a right tackle at Alabama, so we'll have to see position switch. How does Latham adapt to that? Peter Skronsky, who was a fantastic rookie out of Northwestern last season, is back at left guard. Lloyd Cushenberry there at center with Sadiq Charles at right guard. And then Nicholas Petit-Ferrer at the right tackle there, who has definitely struggled at his time with the Tennessee Titans. But Drake, what are your overall thoughts when you look at these offensive lines across the AFC South? I mean, there's definitely some talent sprinkled throughout, especially at left tackle when you're looking at Tunsil, Robinson, and Latham.
Yeah, I really, really like what I see, honestly, from the Jaguars. Cam Robinson, Mitch Morse, Brandon Scherf. Those three, absolute stoic freaking pillars of your offensive line. Laramie Tunsil is undeniable. Shaq Mason, great addition. I think that what Houston is doing just all together, they mean business. That's all you need to know. They mean business. So I think that the Titans, though, that's interesting because Lloyd Cushenberry, still not even serviceable. He played above average last season. I think he was with the Broncos. If I'm not mistaken. So you're getting a veteran center. He's going to help Will Levis. He's going to help Brian Callahan, with pre-play reads and everything, but also Skoronski, dude. I know that we like Skoronski, like
Yeah.
we were guys that were all over a guy like Peter Skoronski. And of course, Sadiq Charles, I think, could grow. Petit Frere could continue, to ascend. But I think that what you're seeing here is, outside of a few people, it's kind of a young squad. I think, especially for the Titans, they've got a very young offensive line.
Yeah, I would agree there, but yeah, I think you hit it right on the head with the Jaguars. I really like, especially that interior. The
Yeah,
biggest question mark for me is Harrison over there on that right side.
yeah, not very
Can
good.
can he raise his play?
Yeah.
Because I don't, I if and I could be completely off base, but I don't think Harrison was very good last season.
No, him and Ezra Cleveland were pretty shaky.
Yeah, as a rookie, I remember that he was not very good on the right side of the offensive line for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm looking to try to find, last season he was the 67th ranked or the 67th ranked right tackle overall. Now I do find it interesting because I think that I wonder how Walker Little is going to play into all this. And when I was looking at the Colts, or I'm sorry, at the Jaguars, offensive line and where guys might fit, I know Walker Little has played some left tackle, but I honestly think that Walker Little, we could see him at right tackle. And if that's the case, I think the Jaguars, I would be more comfortable seeing Walker Little at right tackle than Anton Harrison, in my opinion. I think that would certainly be a better combination for the Jaguars. The Texans, I still think, have some issues. Laird Tunsil and Mason, you're not worried about, but Kenyon Green, Juice Scruggs, Titus Howard, I'm not too confident in those guys, and neither am I with the Titans. Latham's going to be a rookie. Cushenberry's so, but that right side is just bad, and the Titans had a bad offensive line last season. I know they have. Brian Callahan is there. He brought his father from the Cleveland Browns, who is one of the best offensive line coaches in the league, so that's certainly going to help right there. But I don't think it's going to be an overnight change. I just think that it's going to take some time before you see the Titans have a formidable offensive line. So Drake, let's rank them. Let's rank the AFC South teams. Where do you see the Colts from 1 to 4? What are your offensive line rankings of the AFC South?
I think number one's the Colts, and it's not close. I think that I think that they've got the most complete, most proven. I mean, even Bernard Ryman, who's only going into year 3, I mean, he was one of the best tackles in football. You have literally 2 top 10 tackles right there on your football team, okay? And then you have Quentin Nelson. Then you've got Ryan Kelly. 4 of your 5 guys are either above average or top level and higher. Okay, so Will Fries is the only one you're just hoping, hey, if we decide to move on, this is a great year for you to show other teams what you're worth. Do it for us, man. We did it for you. Do it for us kind of thing. I think the Colts are number 1. I think that you have to put the Jaguars number 2. I think right now. I think Brandon Scherf, Mitch Morse, and Cam Robinson. I know Anton Harrison and Ezra Cleveland are kind of like wishy-washy. But the reason I put the Texans third is because Titus Howard was absolutely, positively atrocious last season. And he was a guard. Now he's converted to a right tackle. Okay, that means they did not know what the hell to do at right tackle. Okay, so that's going to be a spot that is going to be attacked like Blake Freeland was last season. I can guarantee you that. So CJ Stroud needs to look to his right side all year until they do something about that. Kenyon Green, I think, is he a rookie?
I think he was a rookie last season.
Okay.
Injuries did not allow him to play because 2 years ago. Yeah, it was 2 years ago because Kenyon Green was the 5th round, or was a 15th overall pick or something around there in 2022.
That's right. Okay, so I think that Laramie Tunsil and Shaq Mason are your two, pillars there. And the
Mhm.
jury's still out on Scruggs, but I just think that, man, Titus Howard, I mean, he was really, really bad. It's kind of shocking they moved him to a different position to
Mhm.
start. And then I think that just because of the uncertain, like the unknown, you're adding Cushionberry, totally different scheme. It's not Sean Payton. Okay, it might be a little different to get adjusted to more of a run base. So who knows? But Cushionberry's solid. Skoronski,
Mhm.
I think, is going to be a great guard. But I just think that there's a little bit too much youth, too much unknown, and not enough experience on that Titans front yet. Could that change? Potentially, but I think it goes Colts, not even close, in my opinion. Then Jaguars, Texans, and Titans. And that's not bias. I just think the Colts have the best offensive line here.
Oh, I would agree with you there. I think, like I said, the Colts had a borderline top 5 offensive line last season. I think
Yeah.
it's just gonna get better. None of these other teams I would consider having a top 10 offensive line, so Colts by far and away had the best offensive line, and Patrick makes a fantastic point here as well. You have to look at the depth. The Colts offensive line is far and away over everyone else. If 1 to 2 go down on any other team, those teams are effed, but the Colts could get
It's a
by. Yeah,
brilliant point, man.
exactly. Because we have the starters up here, but you look at the Texans' depth, the Jaguars, the Titans, they don't have much depth along their offensive lines. The Colts do. The Colts can go 8, 9 guys deep, and you'd be fine with that.
Mhm.
But these other teams, absolutely not. So yes, the Colts by far and away, as you said, just much better offensive line than the rest of the division. Then I'm gonna agree with you. I'm going with the Jaguars. I do think that the Jaguars have the second best offensive line, but I still don't think it's close to the Colts.
No,
I would probably, if I had to say now, I would probably switch Walker Little with Anton Harrison there at right tackle. Then you're
that'll
looking at
probably happen.
that, yeah. Then you're looking at a much better offensive line. Cam Robinson, Mitch Morse, Brandon Scherf. You know what you're getting out of those guys. Walker Little comes in at right tackle. Ezra Cleveland is better in his second season with the Jaguars. I think they'll be just fine, and they'll certainly be able to protect Trevor Lawrence better. Then I would again agree with you. Go with the Titans. Laramie Tunsil and Shaq Mason are solid. The rest of the offensive line way up in the air. Kenyon Green, Juice Scruggs, Titus Howard. Those guys they have to bounce back. Otherwise, it's not going to be pretty for the Texans, and CJ Stroud could be in trouble. The Texans added a lot to that team, not much to the offensive line. We'll see if it ends up biting him. And then the Titans, you look at Skoronski and Cushionberry are the only two names that really excite you. Latham's just a wild card because he's a rookie. He is switching from right tackle to left tackle. He's going to go through some growing pains. That's just how it is in the NFL. But Charles, Nicholas Petit Frere, not great. Not great in 2023. Can they rebound in 2024 with I think it's with Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach? The Titans are certainly hoping so. I just don't know how much they'll be able to improve and how big of an impact that Bill Callahan is going to be able to have on those. So, Drake, it sounds like we're in agreement on these rankings. Colts 1, Jags 2, Texans 3, and Titans 4 as it goes to the offense as in terms of the offensive line rankings. And yeah, Drake, the Colts have certainly set out to build a monster offensive line, and when you look at their opponents in the division, they're certainly going to need it because the Texans with Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson, the Jaguars with Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, Eric Armstead, the Titans. I don't think the Titans necessarily have the defensive line that they did even last season, but still, they want to protect Anthony Richardson and keep him upright. It's starting with the division, and I think they've certainly put themselves in a really good position to do that.
Yeah, and the Colts better have the best freaking offensive line here because they're fucking expensive, man.
Right. Yes.
I'm kidding, guys. If any one of you guys, mostly Will Fries, if any one of those 5 guys are watching this show, I'm kidding.
But I think the Colts offensive line in a really good spot. And to answer the question of if this line can be dominant in 2024, absolutely. They have the
Definitely.
potential to not only be a top 5 offensive line again, but to be potentially a top 3 and then dominant offensive line in 2024. So Drake, let's wrap up the show with the latest Colts news and rumors. And really, guys, there's only one thing to talk about. The Colts released their training camp schedule yesterday. So if you're wanting to make it out to Grand Park in Westfield to watch Colts camp this year, you're going to have plenty of opportunities to do so. It looks like most of the practices, just like a year ago, most of the practices are in the morning, taking place at 10 a.m., trying to beat that afternoon heat and humidity there in Westfield. Most of the practices at 10 a.m. They do have 2 practices that start at 9 a.m. So if you want to go to the real early ones, those are August 2nd and August 7th. A couple of afternoon practices that start at 4 p.m. and really the only night practices the Colts are hosting are on August 15th and 14th. Those are the 2 joint practices with the Arizona Cardinals that will end training camp for the Indianapolis Colts. But Drake, to me, not very many surprises when you look at this camp schedule. I do, as a media person who stands on the sideline for those practices, I do appreciate Shane Steichen making those practices at 10 a.m. rather than what sometimes Frank Reich would do, where it's 1 in the afternoon where the sun is directly over top of you, just beating down, 100-degree day, high heat and humidity. Those were brutal. Those were awful to go to. Shane Steichen, he understands it. Get the work done early so we don't have to stand outside in the afternoon heat.
No, and I'm so excited for camp this season. I think that you get to see a lot of these guys. We were talking about how excited we were for them being rookies last year. Now they're getting year 2, and there's a whole new rookie class. The team is still ridiculously young. They have a bright future. If everything goes well, this could be a camp that we look back upon, here in a couple of years and say, damn, that was a great team to watch develop.
Yes, exactly. So the first practice for the Indianapolis Colts to begin training camp is Thursday, July 25th at 10 a.m. And if you guys come to training camp and you see Drake and I out there, please don't be afraid to say hello.
Please.
We always like meeting you guys. And 25th, we're now less than a month away from Colts camp starting. I can't wait. I know you can't wait either, Drake. It's going to be a huge training camp and really a competitive training camp, I think, for this Indianapolis Colts team.
Yeah, I'm ready. I think that there's a lot of competition, a lot of depth. It's one of the best rosters that I've seen in a while. Definitely the most excited I've been in a while. So I can't wait. So if I can't wait, I'm sure that the fans can't either.
Exactly. So that's our show for today, guys. Really appreciate everybody tuning in to talk about the offensive line for the Indianapolis Colts. No super chats today, but we still appreciate every single one of you that tuned in, asked some good questions, and participated in our Colts chat today. Really want to make sure you guys are all following us on all of our socials. As I say every episode, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I are going live every Monday and Thursday night so you never miss an episode. And if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. Plus, you receive access to our special audio-only episodes, Horseshoe Huddle Halftime. And look at that, NFL Nerd coming in clutch with the super chat to end us off. Appreciate the hell out of you, NFL Nerd. Thank you for your awesome questions tonight. They were definitely fun to talk about. Really appreciate you, buddy, and glad that you can join us every single time we go live. So, Drake, as we sign off, I know you got a lot of articles out there on horseshoehuddle.com for the people to read. Let them know what they're about.
Yeah, got a whole bunch of coverage just on what people are expecting from the Indianapolis Colts offense and just the team in general. So go check those out. But I do have a piece coming out on, I haven't decided if it's 3 to 5, probably 3 players who have the most to prove to the Colts in 2024.
Interesting. That'll be a fun one to read. And guys, I didn't get a chance to get very many Rookie Files pieces out this week, but don't worry. Matt Gonzalez, his Rookie Files drops tomorrow morning on Horseshoe Huddle. An interesting story, and Patrick say just Bortolini. Love caps. It. Thank you so much for the super chat, CFO. Hey, Bortolini's Rookie Files coming next week. I promise you that, and early next week. But tomorrow it's going to be Matt Gonzalez, a guy that's been pretty overlooked throughout his football journey. But hey, I don't know if you'll be able to overlook him for very long once he gets out there in a Colts uniform. So make sure you check that out, as well as everything by our fantastic writers on horseshoehuddle.com. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL. And guys, we're taking a week off. Drake and I are taking next week off. A little, decompression time before we ramp things up. Yeah, we haven't taken a week off. I mean, I went on paternity leave, but still, we haven't taken a week off from the show in quite some time. We're going to get our break here before we ramp things up, because after this break, we probably aren't going to take a break till after the season goes. Yeah. So it's going to be a long stretch for us. But guys, we will be back on July 8th. July 8th. We'll be back that Monday night, and we're moving our positional previews to the defensive side of the ball, starting with the edge position. Latu, Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam, Dio Adangbo. We're going to talk about them all and more on July 8th. As Patrick says, hell yeah, get that dad time in, gents. Definitely going to be nice to spend that week with the kids. Enjoy the time off, rest up, and we'll see y'all July 8th. Thank you, NFL Nerd. That's a great way to end it. We'll see you all July 8th. Everyone, enjoy your July 4th. Happy Independence Day. We'll be back in just over a week to talk more Colts football with all of you. We'll see you then.